Maybe right now, in a corner of your home, your dog is watching your presence, looking at you, but not the way most people assume. Not because they want something, not because they heard a noise from outside, not because you moved. They're just looking. Calm, steady, direct, and with an intensity that feels like it means something, even if you can't quite put it into words. You know that feeling when someone looks at you and you sense there's something behind that gaze, but you can't describe what it is. That's exactly the kind of look this is. Most people call it love. Some say loyalty. Others think it's simply the way dogs smile. And that seems like enough, because what it makes you feel is so warm that nothing more seems necessary. But in that moment, when your eyes and your dog's eyes lock onto each other, something scientifically extraordinary is happening. Something that occurs between no other two species on this planet. And the science behind it doesn't just explain why your dog looks at you. It also explains what your dog actually understands about you, and exactly what is happening in both of your brains at that moment. Let's start with a fact most people don't know. Wolves don't look the way dogs do. They are not as human-oriented as dogs are. In fact, even a wolf raised by humans from birth, fully accustomed to people, perceives prolonged eye contact as a threat. In wolves, gazes are brief, evasive, and laden with stress. This isn't simply a matter of training or habit, it is a profound neurological difference. In nature, for most species, sustained eye contact signals dominance, challenge, or threat. It is something to be avoided, something that escalates tension. But dogs are different. They are almost programmed to make eye contact with humans. They seek your gaze, hold it, and even use it. And when you respond, when you meet their gaze, something happens in both your brain and theirs that has no parallel anywhere else in nature. What exactly? In 2015, scientists at Asabu University in Japan conducted an experiment to investigate this extraordinary bond. They worked with 30 dog-owner pairs and measured oxytocin levels in both the dogs and their owners before and after their interactions. Oxytocin is a molecule associated with bonding and closeness in humans, the one that rises between a mother and her baby, or between two people in love, often called the chemistry of affection. And the results were striking. When a dog gazed at their owner, and the owner gazed back, the oxytocin levels of both the dog and the human rose, not just in the human, in both of them. And this increase was simultaneous. One triggered the other, creating a loop that strengthened the gaze and the bond. The dog looks at the owner, oxytocin rises, they want to look more. The owner looks back, their oxytocin rises, they feel more connected, and the cycle continues. The researchers call this a positive feedback loop, a self-reinforcing cycle of mutual bonding that builds with every second of eye contact maintained. And this never happens with wolves, not even with wolves raised alongside humans. This mechanism didn't appear overnight. It formed over thousands of years, through the slow but deliberate steps of evolution, as dogs lived alongside humans. Dogs carried this chemical bond, the one between human mothers and their babies, into their own interspecies relationships. So when your dog looks at you, they are forming a chemically unique connection that no other animal has evolved to form with humans. And that is only part of the story. Because what makes the dog's gaze truly extraordinary isn't just a neurochemical reaction, it's also the information it carries. Let's move on to a question that sounds simple but is actually quite surprising. Does your dog truly understand your facial expressions? For many years, science approached this question cautiously. We knew that other animals could respond to tone of voice and body language, but recognizing a human face, distinguishing the emotional expression, the difference between a smile and a look of anger, was long considered a capacity unique to humans, or at most to primates. Eventually, researchers decided to test this question directly. A team from the University of Veterinary Medicine in Vienna developed a touchscreen test that showed dogs images of human faces displaying happy and angry expressions. No sound, no body language, no other cues, just faces. And the dogs could distinguish between happy and angry faces even when only the upper or lower half of the face was shown. In other words, a dog can read an emotion by looking only at the eyes or only at the mouth. But what emerged in the follow-up study was even more interesting. When dogs were shown an angry human face, they displayed a left gaze bias, just like humans do, meaning they look toward the left side of the face. This is because the brain's right hemisphere processes emotional and threat-related information. This asymmetry is the same strategy humans use when reading threatening faces, and it is something seen in almost no other species. So when your dog looks at you, they are not looking the way another animal would look at you. They are scanning your face, trying to understand your emotional state, your feelings, your intentions. And they are doing this using the same neural processing strategy that operates between humans. They are genuinely reading you, and they are extraordinarily good at it. A 2021 study published in the journal Animal Cognition showed that dogs can detect subtle emotional shifts in humans, even the micro-expressions and physiological changes that signal stress, anxiety, and fear. And they do this not just visually, but by combining visual cues with scent signals. So the gaze isn't passive observation, it is an active process of gathering information. There is another layer here that almost no one talks about outside of specialized research, and it deserves attention: the sclera. The white part of the eye. If you look in a mirror, you'll see a clearly visible white ring surrounding the colored iris of your eye. That is the sclera. In almost all other primates, the sclera is dark, blended into the surrounding tissue, and serves to conceal the direction of gaze. This is an evolutionary advantage. In competitive environments, if others can't tell where you're looking, it becomes harder for rivals to predict your next move. But humans are different. Our sclera is distinctly white, and the direction of our gaze can be easily understood, even from a distance. And dogs show a similar evolutionary shift. Compared to wolves, dogs' eyes display significantly more visible sclera. And dogs respond to human eye movements with a remarkable level of sensitivity. Experiments by researchers at the Max Planck Institute showed that dogs track human eye movements with a precision that no other domesticated animal, not cats, not horses, not even chimpanzees, can match under the same conditions. So dogs didn't just evolve to look at us, they evolved to be looked at and to be understood through that gaze. The gaze became a two-way communication channel, and dogs developed it specifically for humans. Now let's get to something else that tends to surprise people when they first hear it. Dogs understand pointing. For many of us, this might seem unremarkable. Of course, your dog follows your finger, looks in that direction, and sometimes even finds the object you're indicating. But behind the act of pointing lies complex social cognition, understanding that another being's gesture is intentional, that it is directed toward an external object, and that the purpose of that gesture is to share information. This is called joint attention. Human infants begin developing joint attention around 9 to 12 months of age, and it is considered one of the earliest and most significant indicators of social intelligence. Yet, chimpanzees, our closest genetic relatives, largely fail at this task. When a researcher points to one of two cups to indicate which one hides food, the chimpanzee struggles to use the gesture as a cue, typically falling back on scent, prior experience, or chance. Dogs, on the other hand, reliably find the indicated object. And it's not just pointing. They also interpret the direction of a person's gaze, the raising of an eyebrow, and even whether someone's eyes are focused on them specifically. Experiments from the Family Dog Project in Budapest showed that dogs behave more rule-following when they believe they are being watched, and more freely when they believe they are not. In other words, dogs aren't merely responding to commands. They are tracking what you are paying attention to, what you know and don't know, and even what you intend. This is a form of what psychology calls theory of mind, the capacity to attribute mental states, such as knowledge and intention, to another being. Scientists are still debating exactly how sophisticated this capacity is in dogs, but what is not up for debate is this. Dogs read human social and communicative cues better than any animal ever tested, including our closest primate relatives, and at the center of all these abilities is eye contact. Let's take a closer look at what is actually happening inside the dog's brain. A team at Emory University, led by neuroscientist Gregory Burns, trained dogs to remain still inside an MRI scanner without sedation, a preparation that required months of work and produced the first direct brain imaging data ever collected from awake, conscious dogs responding to social stimuli. When dogs were shown images of human faces compared to objects, activation was observed in the caudate nucleus, a brain region involved in processing reward, positive anticipation, and emotional significance. But the most striking finding came from a different experiment. When dogs were exposed to the sense of familiar and unfamiliar humans, as well as familiar and unfamiliar dogs, only their owner's scent activated the caudate nucleus, in the same way that the anticipation of a reward did. For your dog, you are the source of something positive, of reward, trust, and love. When you connect this to the gaze, your face, your eyes, your expression, the direction of your gaze, your scent, your voice, your posture, all of it comes together in your dog's brain. It is processed as a whole that defines you, a presence uniquely yours, associated with safety and comfort. When your dog looks at you, they are not simply seeing a face, they are processing you, your presence, what you mean to them. To them, you are a clear and emotionally significant figure who represents safety and goodness in their world. This is why that gaze feels the way it does. It is not something you are imagining, it is something that is genuinely, biologically, and neurochemically real. Research also points to another important detail. The timing and context of eye contact matters enormously to your dog. Mutual, natural, consent-based eye contact initiates the oxytocin loop described earlier. But if you force eye contact on a dog, or stare directly at them in a stressful or unfamiliar setting, their brain begins producing cortisol instead. The stress response is activated. The critical distinction here is whether the gaze is grounded in consent and context. A dog that looks at you freely is displaying one of the most intimate social behaviors in the animal world. A dog that looks away when you stare is not being cowardly or disrespectful. They are protecting the safety of the interaction. They are preserving the conditions under which genuine connection is possible. This shows that dogs understand the social rules of eye contact in ways far more nuanced than most people give them credit for. They intuitively know whether a gaze is an invitation or a demand, the difference between being seen and being stared at, and they navigate that distinction with a social intelligence specifically shaped for life alongside humans. Finally, let's look at the origins of this extraordinary ability. When did dogs begin looking at us this way? Genetic and archaeological evidence shows that human-directed gaze behavior was selected for from the very beginning of the domestication process. Changes in the muscle structure around dogs' eyes make their faces more expressive and more readable to humans. So this is not the result of breeding for specific tasks, it is at the foundation of the relationship, at the very core of domestication. Before herding, before hunting, before protection, the gaze came first. The dogs that could hold a human's gaze, read a human face, and trigger the oxytocin response in a human through eye contact were the ones that survived and reproduced. Not because they were the strongest or the fastest, but because they were the most connected. And now, thousands of years later, you sit in your chair while your dog looks at you with eyes shaped by the very possibility of this moment. They are not simply looking at you, they are performing a behavior their species evolved to carry out, one whose roots stretch back thousands of years. The next time your dog catches your eyes, don't look away too quickly, because science tells us that in those few seconds, something real is taking place. A neurochemical loop is beginning. Two nervous systems are synchronizing, and an ancient evolutionary contract, written not in words, but in the meeting of two pairs of eyes, is being reaffirmed. Your dog knows far more about your face than you probably realize, and every time they choose to look at you, they are saying something made possible by 15,000 years of shared history. Perhaps the real question is this: are you looking back? Now I want to ask you, after reading this, will you ever be able to look at your dog's gaze the same way again? In which moments do you feel that connection most strongly when your dog looks at you? Share in the comments. Because what science is showing us is this: every gaze tells far more than we ever imagined. In the next chapter, we'll explore how your dog perceives your voice and the way you speak, and what kind of uniquely powerful effects your communication with your dog creates in their brain. As always, the science is both surprising and deeply moving.